Have you ever wondered why the Bible warns against certain practices and the pursuit of forbidden knowledge? This question takes us back to the very beginning in the book of Genesis, where God issues a warning to Adam about a particular tree in the Garden of Eden. This tree is not just any tree, but the tree of knowledge. God tells Adam, "You are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of knowledge, for when you eat from it, you will certainly die." This isn't a warning against eating fruit, but a metaphorical caution against the pursuit of certain types of knowledge. The story illustrates that there is a realm of knowledge that, once accessed, can lead us away from the path that God has laid out for us. It's a realm that exposes us to the harmful aspects of existence, to the reality of good and evil. This tale is not about the curiosity of humans, but about the boundaries set by the divine. The warning is clear. Some knowledge can be dangerous, some truths too heavy to bear. The fruit of the tree of knowledge represents the moral and spiritual dilemmas that come with awareness and discernment, the burdensome responsibility of distinguishing right from wrong. The Bible, in its profound wisdom, reminds us that not all that glitters is gold. Not all knowledge brings enlightenment. Some can lead to confusion, misery, and estrangement from God. Like Adam and Eve, once we step into the realm of forbidden knowledge, we can no longer return to the state of blissful ignorance. We become aware of our nakedness, our vulnerabilities, and our mortality. The Bible consistently warns us about this. It advises us to tread carefully in our pursuit of knowledge, to discern what is beneficial and what could potentially lead us astray. It encourages us to seek wisdom and understanding, but also cautions us against crossing certain boundaries that could expose us to spiritual perils. So, the pursuit of forbidden knowledge can lead us into dangerous territories, according to the scriptures. The Bible explicitly condemns certain practices. Let's delve into what they are. In the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 18, verse 10, there is a stark warning against engaging in practices like child sacrifice, divination, or witchcraft. These are not just viewed as ungodly actions, but as detestable ones. This strong language suggests a deep and profound aversion, a divine distaste for such actions that go against the fundamental principles of love, respect, and sanctity of life that the Bible upholds. Moving on to Leviticus chapter 19, verse 26. Here we find a clear prohibition against consuming blood, practicing omens, or engaging in fortune-telling. Consuming blood, in the cultural context of the Bible, is seen as a severe breach of respect for life. Practicing omens and fortune-telling, on the other hand, are actions that try to seize control of the future, a domain that, according to the Bible, belongs solely to God. Such attempts to usurp divine control are seen as not merely misguided, but as detestable. Now let's turn to the New Testament, to the book of Acts, chapter 19, verse 19. Here we learn about people who practice sorcery and, upon their conversion, burned their scrolls as a sign of repentance. This act of burning their scrolls, their tools of sorcery, is a symbolic act of rejecting these detestable practices and turning towards a life in line with God's commandments. These verses taken together form a clear, unambiguous statement. The Bible condemns practices like child sacrifice, divination, witchcraft, consuming blood, practicing omens, fortune-telling, and sorcery. They're not just seen as wrong or misguided, but as detestable, a strong term that conveys God's deep aversion to these actions. Clearly, these practices are seen as detestable in the eyes of God, as per these scriptures. What happens when we seek guidance outside of God's will? This question leads us directly to the heart of Hebrews 9:27. In this passage, we're reminded of the certainty of death and the ensuing judgment that follows. This verse, in its profound simplicity, underscores the futility of trying to avoid or bypass the divine will. The Gospel of Luke, chapter 16, brings this point home with the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. In this poignant story, Jesus illustrates that the dead cannot communicate with the living. This narrative, in no uncertain terms, reinforces the prohibition against necromancy or consulting the dead. The message is clear: seeking guidance outside of God's will, especially through forbidden practices, is considered a deviation from the path God has set for us. It's a stark reminder that our attempts to bypass divine will or seek knowledge from the dead are seen as futile and forbidden. The Bible also warns against turning to other gods and promises blessings for obeying God's commands. From the book of Deuteronomy chapter 4 verses 23 and 24 we find a stern warning. It cautions against forgetting the covenant made with God and the dangers of turning to other gods. It highlights the depth of God's passion for his people, likening it to a fire that is kindled against those who forget his covenant. This intense imagery serves to underscore the seriousness of deviating from the path of monotheistic worship. In Exodus chapter 20 verse 3, we encounter one of the most famous commandments, "You shall have no other gods before me." This commandment is not just about acknowledging God's supremacy, but it also emphasizes the exclusivity of worship owed to him. It's a clear and unequivocal statement that underscores the foundation of monotheistic faith. Now moving to Deuteronomy, chapter 28 verses 1 and 2, we find a promise. Here blessings are assured for those who obey God's commands, who listen diligently, and follow the path he has set. It's not just about avoiding the forbidden, but also about actively aligning one's life with God's guidance. These blessings serve as a divine reinforcement, a divine incentive if you will, encouraging adherence to God's commands. What these passages collectively underscore is a worldview deeply rooted in the Bible. It's a perspective that values obedience to God's commands, that issues stern warnings against the spiritual dangers of forbidden practices, and above all, emphasizes an exclusive devotion to God. It's a roadmap, guiding us away from the pitfalls of transgressions and towards a path of blessings. It's a journey that demands unwavering faith and steadfast obedience. It's a voyage that calls for exclusive worship of God and in return, promises blessings beyond measure. In essence, the Bible values obedience to God's commands, warns against forbidden practices, and emphasizes devotion to God alone.